Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Cloudflare is out, and so X is not streaming properly. Anyway, today is Tuesday, November 18th, 2025, and Rupa is defending Brookfield's asset management and saying Polyev sounds like Jagmeet Singh when he criticizes Carney and Brookfield. And she says, Brookfield's really important to Canada, don't you know? So I think that's crazy. Richard Gere's hanging out in the Canadian Parliament on Budget Day. Weird. Who brought the gerbil? And oh man, there's more gerbil jokes coming. I'm sorry. Epstein revelations are very interesting. Trump's gone 180 and is leaning into releasing the files. And now there was video, and I don't have it because I guess I didn't tag it. I thought I did. There was video of the documentation released. Epstein was coaching a congresswoman during a session where she got to question a witness, and Epstein sent live tweets while the woman live texts to the woman to coach her what questions to ask about who specifically, and she ended up asking about the president's chief of staff Rona something or other, and when she asked it and it garnered a result, the text was good work. Like he was watching in real time, trying to wield influence. And that's absolutely crazy. So I've been saying, like, you can't release the Epstein list without also releasing arrests and things like that. But if you've got files that are declassified that people do that with, and the person had found the congressional coaching session and it was videoed, and they linked up the time index of the tweets with the text, excuse me, I don't know why I keep saying tweets, the time index of the text to the hearing, and you could see when she was being coached. It's absolutely crazy. So these people have already incriminated themselves flagrantly. Like, holy smoke, it's absolutely crazy. It's unbelievable. So we'll see what happens, I guess. Budget passed yesterday. Shocking. I'm shocked. This is me being shocked. Yesterday I called it at the beginning of the show. I said they're going to pass this poop sandwich of a budget, and we're going to have to deal with it. And there's not going to be, not that there's nothing we can do about it, but this is the least of the bad news. The bad news is, hey, guess what? Like, we are going the way of England. We are going the way of censored internet for your safety, comrade. Like, this is happening real time. And this budget passing is an indicator of that. And I think that the Conservatives wanted it. Now, it seems like there's maybe strategy at play here, but at the same time, unforgivable. Like, all of these bills need to die. All of these bills should die on paper. The government should fall. There's no confidence in this thing. But here we are. And, well, there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to deal with the budget. And Jing Lai says, Mark Carney's costly train wreck budget will be the end of Canada's economy as we know it. $78.3 billion in deficit, trillions of dollars in new wasteful spending, hundreds of millions of dollars in funding for mainstream media outlets and more, generational debt incoming. Well, we already have generational debt. And it's funny because we had $1 billion surplus when Harper left office, and it wouldn't be that hard to fix, except that we keep getting into more and more debt because of bad spending, because of people who are supporting bad policies and bad budgets for ideological reasons. Enter Elizabeth May. So we will go through how this budget passed yesterday, and how it passed is abstentions and skin of its teeth. And had the two conservative abstentions, the two conservatives who did not vote, had they voted, it would have been deadlocked, and then the speaker would have had to vote. So it would have been a Liberal win, potentially. But that's including Elizabeth May voting for it. But D'Entremont would have made it fall, right? If D'Entremont had voted Conservative as well. So if the Conservatives were in the configuration they were 2 weeks ago, and this vote happened, then it would have failed and we would have been going to an election, right? The budget would not have passed and we would have been going to an election. However, here we are, and politics is messy, and this was engineered. I don't believe this was organic. People were doing everything they could to get this budget passed, and they got it by the skin of their teeth. And Elizabeth May says, I wasn't going to vote for this budget, but then I got assurances from Mark Carney, XYZ, and she goes back onto the climate change garbage. But fundamentally, she says, I've got assurances that now I can support this budget. So here's Elizabeth May explaining why she sold Canadians out to avoid an election and support this budget for the Liberals. But I'm worried more, not about this budget and the spending, but I am worried about the budget and the spending, but the implications of C2, C8, C9, all of these things are going to pass. You don't pass this budget and say, okay, now we're going to stop you on these speech violations and all of the violations and all of the rest of the things that you're trying to do. if they wanted to stop the Liberals, this was an opportunity that the powers that be ignored. And I think that Poilievre did ignore it. I think he had potential to be able to turn this, but he did. I don't think he even tried. Here's Elizabeth May. We're just going to listen to about a minute of this. Here we go.
But then they could be voting on their apps somewhere else. I couldn't vote for that budget as I read it. I made it clear why I found it so very deficient. And one of the reasons was the Paris Agreement, and our commitment to it wasn't even mentioned. Our commitments to climate adaptation weren't mentioned. And I felt it weakened where we were on the nature agenda and the Kunming-Montreal Agreement that wasn't mentioned. So, as you could tell, and as I've said for so often that I think I've spoken to all of you individually, I was still talking to the government, talking to people within the Prime Minister's office, talking to various ministers, to see if there was some way to remedy a document in print that I couldn't support. I think we found that way today. I heard overwhelmingly from my constituents and Canadians from coast to coast that they wanted someone to stop an election happening by accident.
Hard eye roll.
That's a place of responsibility. And I heard my own inner voice say...
Did she just say that she hears voices?
We're at the very edge of it being too late for us to be sure that our own children and grandchildren alive today can live in a livable world where human civilization is sustainable.
Ideologically captured person who used an ideological climate change excuse to pass a budget that is not good or fiscally responsible for Canada, right? And so that's not good. Bad for Canada, right? Here's Elizabeth May, and listen to those Liberals cheer when she votes yes for the budget. The real Mr. Bench says, how much was Elizabeth May paid for her vote to support the Carney Liberal budget? Anyone know what she was offered? Here's the vote.
Mr. Watchorn.
Mr. Watchorn.
Ms. May.
Ms. May.
You watch, they'll do a cabinet shuffle and she'll be a minister. Somebody was saying, I imagine her being in a position of power. Maybe that's what she traded. She wanted to be speaker. She put her hat in the ring for speaker. Can you imagine? Oh my gosh. Gov.exe says, the NDP says they listened and were told by Canadians now is not the time for an election because Trump is still menacing the country and saying it has nothing to do with the fact that they're broke. So a leaderless party that nobody likes claims to speak for Canadians. So again, the NDP is still propping up through abstention. So the NDP abstained enough so that with the NDP and the Liberals, the NDP and the Conservatives voted no by mostly, but both had at least 2 MPs abstain, ensuring the Liberals win. So how does that make any sense? Oh, it doesn't. It doesn't. So we listened to Canadians and they didn't want an election. So we engineered this bullshit vote so that we wouldn't get an election, but we'd look real good saying no. The party says no, but these other people say Liberals win, right? Like, ridiculous. And same goes for the Conservatives. And people are saying that Stubbs, I think it's Stubbs, was ill and she was out on illness leave. Can she not vote from her tablet? Do we not have COVID rules? Like she could vote from her tablet. She can vote from a laptop. She's not available for the budget vote? Are you kidding me? Because what? And then another one just didn't vote. I can't vote. Because of what? Because you want the Liberals to win? You Liberal, get out of caucus? What? Here's the NDP with their nonsense.
Your party's abstentions just allowed for the government to cut thousands of public worker jobs. How do you square that being the party of workers?
Well, this is a Liberal budget, and this is what happens when you vote for Liberals, is these are the kind of neoliberal, neoconservative policies that you get. So New Democrats have expressed our opposition to this budget, and we have said that we are not going to force an election right now that clearly Canadians don't want, and our country doesn't need.
Was this about your electoral prospects, the fact that the NDP can't afford an election right now?
Not at all. No, I mean, this is not about us. This is about Canadians, and that's why the NDP, we took our time last week to go across the country to talk to Canadians, our constituents, and find out what they said and what they wanted. And it is very clear. There is a strong consensus in this country that Canadians do not want an election basically 6 months after the last one. They also are feeling the precarity and the instability of the moment. We have Donald Trump still menacing our country and serious economic issues. Canadians want us to be in Parliament addressing those serious issues. And so that's why we're taking the position that we're
And it's the Liberals' job, but yet you're helping the Liberals avoid an election by abstaining. Why?
Look, there's 343 people in the House of Commons. I've said from the beginning that it's Mark Carney's responsibility as the Prime Minister of a minority government to craft a budget that can earn majority support. But at the same time, we're in a unique situation right now, 6 months after the last election, where Canadians don't want an election right now. I haven't heard anybody dispute that. There is no strong desire for an election among the Canadian people. And we believe that it's important to tap into what Canadians want. And second, what's very important is the economic precarity that we're facing right now. You know, we have serious economic issues. Mr. Trump is changing his mind every day, and it's not the right time for our country to plunge into an election.
What stupidity. It's not like Mark Carney has had any success whatsoever at dealing with Trump. It's not like staying the course is staying the course with a winning strategy or something like that. We've lost 3 innings. Do you want to change the pitcher? No. Let's stick with this guy. He's gonna pull out an inning any time now, right? Like, let's definitely keep losing this game because we're idiots and we can't see exactly what's happening. The thing is, nobody wants an election because the elections are damn well rigged. Nothing will change. That's the unfortunate reality of the situation. If we had a trucker party that is standing in Ottawa that says, listen, we're done with allowing the federal government to screw us around, and we're going to have an election right now, and all 343 of you are going to be replaced by one of these truckers, and that's that. I would support an election then, right? If the truckers were on the ballot in the face of this nonsense, saying, maybe we're going to stop sending money to foreign countries. Maybe we're going to stop sending money maybe we're going to stop the carbon tax in all its forms. Maybe we're going to stop harming ourselves with bad environmental policies and bad trade policies. And we're going to normalize with the United States again. And we're probably going to investigate the current federal government for their connections to China because we have some serious questions. And Sam Cooper is going to spearhead that for us because Sam's a good guy, I think. So, like, if we had somebody talking about that kind of stuff, I bet you a whole lot of people would want an election. But we've got Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre, who both pretty much want to do the same thing because it keeps them in their positions of power. And so I'm not down with that. That's not something that I'm interested in. Here's Carrie, and she says, the leader of the NDP says Canadians don't want an election. How the heck do these out-of-touch morons know what Canadians want? We want controlled immigration and controlled crime, but that's not going to happen. The NDP can't afford an election, tell the truth. That's the real crux of it for the NDP. They don't want an election. David says, interestingly, both the CPC and the NDP had 2 MPs abstain, effectively ensuring the budget would pass no matter what the other parties decided to do. And Elizabeth May helped to get the budget over the line. None of these parties wanted an election. No, Elizabeth May's done. She's old and ineffective. The CPC are clearly a uniparty, it looks like to me anyway, and I've said that for years now. The NDP are Liberals. I don't see what the electorate sees at all, other than I think the elections are rigged and the numbers are made up, and basically the powers that be are able to place whichever MPs they want to fix a government that they want, and then they can continue doing what they're doing now, which is pass budgets and continue to sour the trade relationship between Canada and the United States, pushing us closer to China in trade and all sorts of other things. And then if the relationship between Canada and the United States breaks, well, that will cause economic harm that will force Canadians into the arms of a waiting government ready to print money and hand it over to you to their hearts and your heart's content, right? Until that breaks, and then all of a sudden the government doesn't have any solutions and everybody's poor. And we all stand around going, oh, what happened? Well, we're watching it happen right now. Amir says, 2 NDP abstentions. Why not mention the 2 Conservative Party MPs abstained from voting as well, allowing the budget to pass? Your abstaining colleagues are Shannon Stubbs and Matt Genereux. Why did you omit that from your message? So Roman Babber says 170 to 168. Mark Carney's budget passes. Tough day on Parliament Hill, but Conservatives will not stop fighting for Canada. They did not fight for Canada to make this budget drop the government, right? So they didn't fight for Canada then. They're not fighting for Canada now. 160 or 170 to 168. I thought majority was 173, 174. I thought that because we're 343 now, right? So weird. Chris says on a federal level, Canada is under the thumb of a uniparty. Chris continues, he said, had CPC Shannon Stubbs, CPC Matt Genereux, and CPC defector Chris D'Entremont vote against this budget, we would be heading to an election. It's a uniparty stage. And sorry, people calling me in the middle of my show. GM Forbes says Stubbs is on medical leave and was unable to vote, and her leave was cleared by the CPC long before the budget was introduced. If her and Genereux had voted no, it would have been 170 to 170. The speaker would have voted to break the tie. He's a liberal, which is an okay point, fair enough. But if you've got 170 to 170, that sends a message. And still may lose, but at least it looks like you were kind of trying. You know what I mean? But in this case, it doesn't even look like there were any defectors who were swayed by anybody's rhetoric or anything like that. Again, I referenced the Netflix show House of Cards, where Kevin Spacey would need 5 or 6 votes, and he would go out and beat the hell out of anybody until. And again, I'm not a Kevin Spacey fan or anything like that, but I like political intrigue. And at the time, the show seemed accurate to what actually happens when people go out and are trying to protect their criminal enterprises or, political crown jewels, right? And so it's one of those things. If I thought that they were genuinely trying to make this budget not pass, then I might give them some credit. But it seems like they didn't want the budget to pass and they acted accordingly, right? And that's weird. Right Blend says a second Conservative MP, Shannon Stubbs, abstaining from voting despite posting a video this morning on social media slamming the Liberals. Conservative MP Matt Genereux, who is leaving Parliament in the spring, also abstained, as well as 2 NDP MPs, Gord Johns and Laurie Ildote. If Stubbs and Genereux voted no, the budget would have failed and there would have been an election. So it's interesting. Genereux said that he's not voting. He's not doing re-election. He's not going to be in for re-election. And he said, but I'm leaving in the spring, implying that he was going to vote one way or the other on this budget. And now he's not voting one way or the other on the budget. And Shannon Stubbs is able to post on X, but she's not able to vote one way or the other. And she posts on X like she's not supporting the budget. So that's super weird. She says, you won't believe this. Last year, the Liberals passed a law that lets them fine Canadian businesses up to $15 million or 3% of revenue just for talking about their world-leading sustainable environmental work. And if business leaders don't echo Liberal talking points, they could even face criminal charges. This isn't just about oil and gas. Bill C-59 hurts mining, forestry, auto, and even clean electricity providers. Only Conservatives will repeal C-59 and defend your freedom of expression for people, for businesses, and for all Canadians. So, I mean, again, that's not happening. Freedom of expression is not being defended at all whatsoever. And Shannon, I thought she was talking about the budget, but still, it is. If you can vote by remote means on a phone or something like that, it's unforgivable to not vote in a confidence motion. Like, you vote for it or you vote against it, you shouldn't abstain. Here's Kirk. He says, it's important to understand that the CPC doesn't want an election. No one does, and was prepared, and the CPC were prepared to abstain more votes for in case the NDP all voted against it. NDP or Andrew Scheer and MP Reid voted after the vote count was known, claiming they had technical difficulties even though they are in person. This is politics, ladies and gentlemen. So this is political theater, I would say. But they want an outcome, and they got the outcome they wanted. I don't know who's calling me, but it is kind of frustrating because I'm live streaming. So I'm going to decline again. So apologies, whoever's calling me, if it's important. You're going to have to wait at least 5 minutes. When I'm done the live stream, I'll answer the phone. Tracy says there's the answer. 2 NDP MPs abstained and provided the Liberals a win. Stewart says the Liberal budget appears to have passed thanks to 2 abstentions from NDP MP Gord and Laurie Ildote. The other 5 NDP MPs voted nay, and yay vote from the Green Party leader, May, with a final vote of 170. Jeff says MPs should have to vote for or against each bill. If they can't do that, they shouldn't be in their job. I agree with that. Holly Doan says Commons last night passed Ways and Means motion on federal budget 170 to 168 on warnings MPs didn't know what they were voting for. The government is hiding information from us. Yeah, sure are. Gord Johns pushes the budget over the line by abstaining. Performative nonsense. So yeah, there's a video. I don't really care about the video, so we're going to keep moving on. This woman, before the budget passed, says you'll see some MPs who aren't able to vote for some reason. Here we go. And this is on CTV News. So that's wild.
I think some common sense will prevail. You might have some opposition members who have Wi-Fi problems, who have suddenly been called away and are unable to be present in the House of Commons. But I think it largely will hinge on the fact that Canadians don't want another election. I don't think there's anybody that was back in their ridings last week who was being told, we want to go back to the polls, we want another costly election, we want limbo in the context of our trade negotiations and when we're at this big economic moment. And the other reality is, for the opposition parties, they're actually not likely to come out ahead in an election. Canadians will probably punish whoever.
No. It was queued up to where I needed it to be, but then it didn't play that part. But she was saying that opposition members might have some Wi-Fi problems or be suddenly called away or unable to vote in the House of Commons. So they knew of the abstention plan. Concerned citizen or concerned Canadian says he tried this before in the UK and it failed. Carney is trying to trick all of us with some accounting sleight of hand. His budget violates standard accounting principles, and his change in nomenclature is blatantly misleading, hiding the true extent of the budget. So you can't change spending into investment and not declare that you're still in deficit if your spending is higher than your income, right? Like you're in deficit then. So here is Vesper. He says, just a reminder, the deficit is twice as high, according to the CBC, as what we saw from Chrystia Freeland in the fall economic budget, and the growth is half. So yeah, we got to pass that thing, right? Doug Ford says we got to pass that thing. Doug Ford has endorsed Mark Carney's budget, says it's in the best interest of the country. It's in the best interest of the country to make sure we pass this budget. Doesn't matter what political stripe you're from. He's a liberal. And I think that this budget is not a good budget. It doesn't matter that everybody's saying this is the best thing since sliced bread and you got to do this for, for the good of the country and so on and so forth. Ridiculous. Here is a dude. I think he grew up in China, but I could be wrong about that. Here, or maybe Hong Kong. Here's this guy, and he is talking about a 13-year-old who implored him to pass the budget.
I rise today to speak in strong support of Budget 2025. This is a budget that strengthens our economy, advances a fair society, and ensures a fair, more resilient communities for all Canadians. Last week, I received a letter from Emma, a 13-year-old student in Burnaby Central. After reading my September mailer, she urged her government to stand up against unfair U.S. tariffs and policies that would hurt Canadian workers and families. But Emma's letter didn't stop here. She is openly queer and wanted a government that stands for equality, fairness, and inclusion. Her voice reminds us that the work we do in Parliament matters to the next generation. Madam Speaker, when a young person feels safe and empowered to speak up about trade and protecting 2S LGBTQI+ Canadians, that speaks volumes about our country and our responsibility as lawmakers.
Weird. The acronym just keeps getting more ridiculous, doesn't it? Holly Doan says feds refuse to discuss failure to achieve goals on Indigenous issues despite a spending increase from $10 billion to $46 billion since 2015. Has anybody been fired? So there's been billions of dollars spent, like tens of billions more dollars spent, $30 billion, $36 billion more spent, and nothing done? Nothing achieved? Wow. Not even like clean drinking water? I bet you if you gave me $15 billion, I could do it. $15 billion is cheap compared to what you guys have been paying before, right? Is this yearly? $15 billion a year. I could definitely figure it out. Sure, definitely. Got a water corporation and everything. There is a machine. It's just basically a giant industrial dehumidifier, and it makes water from just any humid air. And you can put it anywhere, and it's nice, clean, soft drinking water, and you can have it geared up and down. Like you can have a dehumidifier turned up to take all the humidity out or whatever, but you can turn this thing up and down where it can make hundreds of gallons a day of water, right? Wouldn't that be great? And they cost nothing. Like it's like $100,000 a machine. It's like a medium expensive truck, and they're truck mounted. Nobody's doing this. Nobody's thinking about this. These things exist, and you can just go buy them, right? Like the Canadian government's like, you know what? We don't know how to figure out clean water. We're not going to figure out clean water. We're just going to throw money at this thing, and we're pretty sure they can drink the money. Okay, so there you go, guys. Here's some money. How much is water on Amazon.ca? Alan Fryer says, breaking is responding to Jiggly News, and he says, breaking, Pierre Poilievre loses again, news at 11. And he says, not so true. The fact that Carney dodged a bullet tonight could actually turn out to be a loss for him next year. If he can't deliver something substantive by spring, he's lost the vote. Had he lost the vote tonight, he would likely have secured a slim majority in a winter election. Next year, I don't think so. So I'm not a believer of just wait, guys, this is all a strategy. It seems like the strategy is steal all the Canadian tax dollars, give it to Ukraine or other, and the other's got a little star on it with kickbacks, right? Rinse, repeat. 4 is protect everybody else who's doing this. 5 is remove anybody who figures out the game. It seems like we're getting screwed. It doesn't seem like people are like, yes, we'll let the Liberals hang themselves and then we'll ride in next year after all the censorship things are passed to have a very fair election. No, it doesn't seem like a legit strategy at all. Here's Satire Squad, and he's talking about Brookfield. Brookfield denies premature celebration after leak reveals party plans before Carney's record deficit budget event passes. Brookfield insists the lavish event, reportedly titled Fiscal Responsibility, a celebration of unlimited government spending, wow, is purely hypothetical and in no way connected to the billions in new spending that just happened to align perfectly with several Brookfield-led initiatives. I hope that's true. I hope that this thing happened because, if it's actually titled Fiscal Responsibility, a celebration of unlimited government spending, and nobody's held accountable, can you imagine a conservative government doing this? Pierre Poilievre, a celebration of all the money the government's giving my company. Woot woot, right? Mr. Poilievre, I feel like this is inappropriate. But Brookfield, it's just fine. A celebration of unlimited government spending. Oh, that was a missed opportunity for the title of the show today. Darn, shucks, right? Anyway, jaw-droppingly unbelievable. Rupa says, I pointed out during the campaign that the relentless attacks on Brookfield Asset Management, a Canadian business success story, were absurd. BAM hasn't been charged with breaking any rules, only of doing what countless global firms do, use legal tax havens. We're lucky to have a firm like BAM in a highly socialized and regulated economy, and we need more such companies. While Carney is